Hey, this is Cameron, and welcome to the recording log. Alright, sorry, I got something in my pants here. It's my wallet. Ooh. Well, I have a special video for us, as I always do. It's always just something special I got cooking for you. But, as you may know, if you've been watching, I released a recording of my fugue, BWV 1001. And there are a lot of reasons why I wanted to do that. Like, first, it feels good to finally make a product that is just music and not like, hey, this is Cameron, I'm gonna do some music for you. Here it is. It's not done yet. And then like make it and then it's like, it's alright. Like it's not that great. That fugue recording, it really is like kind of the best I can play anything and like the best I can do right now. I mean, I already said on the record what I think it is. It's like a 5.5 out of 10. That is under the harshest of scrutiny possible though. Like for a homebrew like recording thing, like I think it's pretty decent, like especially for like an undergrad level. But you know, that's not the last fugue that I'm gonna record, or the last of that fugue that I'm gonna record, obviously. You know, other reasons I wanted to do it is because I want to work on other stuff and sort of not put it on the back burner, but just sort of let it develop on its own and just work on little bits of it at a time going forward, and not having to worry about keeping it like this finished product that I can actually play at any point. But now I can sort of work on it and then come back to it and try again later. So I spent like basically an afternoon recording it. It took like a few hours. I'll go through my process for how I recorded something like that. And I also encourage you all to do the same thing. And even if you're not ready to actually record something, I think even just attempting recording on your own, it'll really show you what you need to work on. Because you'll either be able to have a completed recording where everything's at a similar quality, or there will be passages where you just simply can't. And once you know that information, you now have no excuse to not practice those passages that are giving you trouble and get everything up to an equal quality. And then raising it to the next quality, of course, that's like a whole other struggle. But you have something to work with doing that. Well, without further ado, let's go ahead and jump into what we have here. So I'm going to show you two different files, and I'm going to go over first the recording process, and then also the mixing and mastering process that I did. Jumping into the first one, we have a singular audio track. Just one track. Yeah, and something that you might notice here, there are a lot of cuts. Like, first off, what's the deal with that? Isn't that like cheating? Like you putting together a bunch of parts to make one illusion of like a completed thing? It's just a bunch of like parts. This is a generally accepted practice in recording classical music, especially when you're just focused on having the best final product possible. This isn't really supposed to be like a performance or like a potential like recital demonstration or anything like that. This is just me trying to get my fugue out there in the way that I want it to be heard, and with everything like as clean as I can possibly play it. So yeah, I had to do a lot of cuts. So, just for a little background, in my degree, I took a lot of audio recording classes that centered around recording classical music. My professor, he was one of the head recording guys for Sony, and he recorded a lot of stuff, a lot of classical music in particular. These are techniques that I learned recording classical music in those classes, because sometimes I would like record some of the other instrumentalists at school. What I did was divide it up into like 15 or 20 sections or so. So you'll see here, we have the beginning. It's all one take. So you know, it goes all the way until this. And then I guess in that chord, I kind of screwed it up. So I would basically just go for as long as I could. And then if there were any rough patches in a recording that I liked, because I think I pretty much did like up until the first section with that high E. Like I would go into approximately there, and then if there were any rough patches or anything I wanted to redo, I would just redo it until I was satisfied with it, and then move on. And I basically just did that for the entire thing. Something that you'll notice, and this is like telling right here, there's still a lot of cuts like in the beginning, but they're long passages of no cuts, because I was comfortable with all of those just not being cut. Like I was fine with everything being played. But then as we get to the end here, I mean, look at all these freaking cuts. Like I have some cuts that are like one measure, like that one. Like that right there, like just one little cut. That's definitely something to look at, because there are a lot of those towards the end. Like you see how many times I have to cut, and a lot of these are just like 4 measures right here. Yeah, so that was the process. One thing that I'm also doing, and I do this for the videos, like these will be in like the videos that you're watching now, where I do these little tiny, just several millisecond fades into the tracks. And you'll notice that if you ever end an audio file really abruptly, there'll be like this clip, and the fade will pretty much just get rid of that. So like if you do a cut like right here, for example, there'll be this really nasty like this sound. Like that that sound. You hear it in my videos sometimes if I'm not careful. I try to clean up as much of those as I can, but that just happens when you make cuts like in the middle of sound. So that is the recording process. Now, let's make our way to the mixing and mastering, because I do want to show you that. Now, you might notice here, I have 2 audio tracks, which is weird. I actually have 4 audio tracks because I exported it as stereo for some reason. And by the way, these are the same tracks twice, and I'll talk about why I have that, which I didn't actually end up doing that in the final recording, but it is an option that you can do. I'll just show you. Before I talk about the whole like stereo audio and stuff, let me actually say I recorded this using just a single microphone, and I just used what I had, which is a wide diaphragm condenser mic. Usually for classical guitar, you'd want to do like a stereo pair or like an array of some kind, just so you can get like a really nice like stereo sounding capture of your instrument, which any famous classical guitarist you listen to on like Spotify or something, it'll sound very stereo, which we'll talk about that in a bit. But first I wanted to show you what I did in terms of like compression and all that. So first thing we're going to add is a high pass filter, which is this right here. So we call that a high pass because it's letting all the highs pass. And we're also going to add a little bit of a low pass filter, kind of starting at 10,000 hertz. And that's just going to sort of tighten up the sound a little bit. It's going to make it a little less muddy down here. Like here's a comparison. You know. It's just gonna tighten it up a bit. You don't need all those lows ringing out so loud, and then all the like sub lows here are just like unnecessary. You don't want that at all. Like you can hear like maybe some like truck outside my apartment like driving in this area. And then the other thing, I have this raised a bit just because I like, I don't know, I'm just bringing out the mids because why not? And then I also have that raised slightly too, around 6,000. Without that, sounds like that. I don't know, a lot of that's to taste. It's kind of like adding pepper to your food. It's just like, it's just a little something. Okay, next thing we're doing, we're gonna add the compressor. So I'm doing the ratio all the way 30:1, which, like, I don't know exactly what it does, but this is just sort of the process that I do for recording classical music. It basically makes your compressor, like, really, really powerful. It does, like, a lot of compression, but I have the threshold really low, so a lot of compression is only happening if it's really, really loud, and most of the time it's just sort of like barely doing anything, but it does something. It does a little bit of something. So here's what it sounds like. So it's off, it's on. Like you can see, it's not really doing much. Oh, but just when it gets really loud, it just sort of brings things down and makes things a little bit fatter. So it looks like an extreme compressor, but I like doing it for that reason, just to sort of make the highs a little more even. Now, the next compressor that I'm adding, this one's gonna be much more mild, and I'm giving it a little bit of makeup because I didn't want to add gain, because I already have gain on this compressor, and I wanted it to be a little bit louder for some reason. It's actually still pretty mild. But as you can see, it's affecting it a little bit more, though. It's doing a little something more constantly. I'm not going to tell you exactly what a compressor does. Basically, in short, everything that's loud, it's going to make it a little bit quieter, and everything that's quieter, it's going to make it a little bit louder. And all it does is kind of scrunch down. It compresses the waveform, and in turn, it's going to make it a little bit quieter, but then you boost the total volume, and in the end, you get a less dynamic, but fatter and more full-sounding audio form. Because it makes it less dynamic, you don't want to go crazy with it, so these are the only 2 compressors that I'm using. I'm not explaining it very well, because I'm not like an expert in this. I just kind of, like, you know, I just kind of do stuff. But I do know that the first one, that seems like really extreme, that is like a common practice in like recording classical music, so I do like doing that. And then this compressor is just a really light compressor. Do it to taste. Do it to taste. Alright, next up, let's actually talk about this bus right here. I usually use a bus for reverb, and basically what a bus does is if I have more audio files like this, like all going at the same time, I can add the bus to each one, and now I can use the same exact reverb on all of them without having to put in the same reverb, and it's like 3 separate reverb like plugins like on 3 separate audio files. It's now 3 audio files on 1 reverb plugin. I find that when you have one track or like one song, it's better practice to use the same reverb on everything. It just gets weird if you start using like one reverb on one thing, one reverb on the other. It's just not something that you'd usually do. Anywho, so this reverb that I'm using, first off, I'm using, what is this called? Space D? Space Designer. Let's hear what it sounds like, actually. So I'm gonna solo it. So that's the isolated reverb. I really like Space Designer in Logic. It's a free plugin. I think it sounds great. All right, let's hear it with the original. You can hear when I turn it off, you can really hear the reverb. Which, that's great. It's a little muddy when you don't use any EQ on the reverb. So let's actually do that next. I'm gonna use a pretty aggressive high pass filter on it. And it's gonna go from this to this. So all those lows are pretty much getting kicked out. And then I have a slight low pass filter on it too, just to get rid of some of the like that sound. You know, just slight. And now adding that in. So there it is with the EQ, and then here it is without. Now with. It's subtle, I know. It's just a little more crisp. That's why I like it. It's more crisp, you know? Okay, so I EQ'd the reverb, and next I'm gonna add a spread to the reverb. So now it's gonna sound like without the spread, and this. So you hear it more on this side now. Let's talk about the spread. The only reason why I'm using that is because I only used one mic, so I got a mono recording, which it looks like I got a stereo recording here. I probably just exported it stereo. They're the same file. So let's actually get a reference track going. Do I have Spotify on here? Okay, that's fine. We'll use YouTube. Alright, apparently that guy's name is John Williams. Okay, buddy. John Marcel Williams, you are dominating the John Williams. That's crazy. What is going on? John Williams Beetle EV1001. Okay, I just need to get Spotify, I guess. God dang it. What? Wait, can I not get Spotify on my laptop? What is going on right now? Am I dreaming? Am I like in a dream? Why is nothing working? Download. Here we go. Alright, so, wait. Where is it? Oh my god. I'm getting so pissed. Okay, so I shouldn't even be playing this, but we do need a reference track just so you guys can hear what I'm talking about. But I'm gonna show you John Williams' fugue, and you'll hear that one side will like sound a little different than the other, and that is because he used two different microphones to actually record it, and that's what stereo sound sounds like. Even if it's just from one sound source like a guitar, you just pick up different stuff on each microphone, and it sounds like this. Here one's like. And it just creates like a more dynamic and like immersive experience. You can really hear it in 997. So in order to sort of mimic that, what I'm gonna do, I have a few ways of doing it actually. First, I'm going to use a stereo spread. I'm going to keep the reverb as it is right now, and we're going to add that later. This is how it sounds without it. And now with the spread. Without and with. And just to get more feels for it, I'll just flip through a few of the spreads and you can hear how they change it. See how they're all a little different? So they sort of mimic like what stereo recording sounds like. And it's digital, it's not as good, it's not as cool, but it's fine, it's good enough, and that's what I used. So that's one way of like trying to make it sound like you used a pair instead of just a singular microphone. So I'm going to use the spread like that. I'm also going to put that on the reverb. I have a limiter, which that's just going to save it from clipping if it ever does clip, which it looks like it maybe almost does there. So it'll never come closer to clipping than half of a decibel. 2BQ is kind of fun because you can maybe make it sound like a little like more old and muddy. Not really into it though. Okay, so that's what we have. So that is what I ended up doing, I think, for the final mix. And just so we can hear the difference between them, here's what it sounds like raw. And then here's what it sounds like with all that stuff. you know, so it just gives... Just makes it shimmer a little more, gives it a little more vibrance. You could also argue that maybe it makes it sound worse. I don't know. Oh, I had the reverb higher than the actual recording, sorry. So it actually sounds more like this. Yeah, alright, so you get the idea. So with doing all of that, you end up with this. It will be done again, don't worry. And when I do, I'll private this one so nobody can ever hear it again. Alright, well I think that pretty much covers everything. Hopefully that was cool. And again, I encourage you to record your own pieces that you're working on. It is very eye-opening. Even though I was able to get like a complete recording, I still have a really good idea now of stuff that I need to work on. Like better than I did when I started recording it, of course. So you know, it's a great experience. I recommend doing it. Anyways, let's go ahead and wrap this thing up here. If you made it this far, be sure to subscribe and leave a like. Hey, want some guitar lessons? I offer guitar lessons. Did you know that? Email in the description. Feel free to reach out. I'm taking students right now. Hey, new year, New Year's resolution, right? Get some guitar lessons from good old Sore Hands over here. And of course, get some merch if you want some. All that selling, you can get those stickers there. You can get the sweatshirt. You can get that shirt. There's a bunch of shirts there. Go check it out. We got some sweatpants. What can I say? And now I got these ones on with the RSI hand. And of course, leave some comment questions. I'll answer them in the chair. I'll answer them in the podcast. And until next time.